Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. This time, we're taking a look at Love Actually. We're going to unpack this holiday favorite, uncover a few surprising facts, behind-the-scenes details, and maybe even challenge some of our assumptions about this Christmas classic. We've got some great research to help us along the way, an academic-style report about the film covering everything, from production and reception to its legacy and cultural impact.
I think you'll be surprised by how much depth there actually is to Love Actually. It really is more than just a feel-good holiday film when you get down to it.
Definitely excited to get into it. So let's set the stage. Love Actually, a 2003 British rom-com, directed by, maybe you've heard of him, Richard Curtis, the man behind films like Notting Hill and Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Oh yeah. You can't talk about rom-coms without bringing up Curtis. He's got that signature style down pat, heartwarming, feel-good stories, and Love Actually definitely fits right in there. But what's interesting about this one is how he takes all these different storylines and connects them all to explore all these different facets of love.
Absolutely. It goes way beyond just romantic love, right? You've got family love, the love between friends, and even that, ouch, painful sting of unrequited love. And speaking of all those storylines, I was going through the research, and Curtis actually initially pictured 13 different storylines.
14. Wow, that's a lot of love.
Yeah. In the end, he narrowed it down to 10. But just imagine all those stories that ended up on the cutting room floor. Like, there was one about a girl in a wheelchair, another about a boy who writes a love song for, I think it was his classmate. They even filmed 2 whole storylines that got cut. One about an African couple dealing with a famine, and another about a headmistress and her longtime partner.
Wow. Really makes you think what the film would have been like with all those extra storylines.
Yeah.
And it kind of puts into perspective the decisions filmmakers have to make when putting a story together. Imagine having to cut scenes that you put your heart and soul into.
I can't even imagine. It was just so hard to let go. Speaking of behind-the-scenes stuff, did you know they actually filmed some scenes with hidden cameras? The people involved even had to sign waivers.
Wow, talk about dedication to capturing those genuine reactions.
I know, right? Oh, and here's another fun fact. After they finished filming, the cast and crew actually got to buy things from this set.
Oh, wow. I'd love to have one of those cue cards. With a big declaration of love written on it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So visually, you've got these great London locations throughout the movie. Places like the OXO Tower and Selfridges, which are really iconic. They even filmed some scenes over in Marseille, France. But, and here's where things get interesting, the film actually got kind of mixed reviews, especially in the US. Some critics said all the storylines felt kind of scattered and underdeveloped.
Yeah, thinking about it, those mixed reviews, especially over in the US, might have had something to do with the film's very British sense of humor and the way the story is told. American rom-coms at that time, they tended to be a bit more formulaic.
You know what? That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it that way. But even with those mixed reviews, some U.S. critics did praise the film, talking about its charm and those amazing performances from the entire cast. It's amazing how where you're coming from can shape how you see a film.
Definitely. It just goes to show how subjective art is. There's no one right way to look at a film.
Absolutely. But even with the mixed bag of reviews, the film was a huge hit at the box office. It raked in over $250 million globally. Not bad for a film with a $40 million budget.
Yeah, clearly it really resonated with people on some level.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of recognition, Love Actually was up for some awards, too. It was nominated for a BAFTA for Best Original Screenplay, and even a Golden Globe for Best Motion Picture, specifically in the musical or comedy category. And Hugh Grant, well, he got a Best Actor nomination at the Golden Globes.
Well deserved, I'd say. So no Oscars, but it definitely got its fair share of recognition. Its impact wasn't just about the money it made. So I'm curious, after hearing all of this, has any of it changed your view on Love Actually?
You know what, it has. I'm definitely seeing it in a new light now.
Yeah.
Especially considering those cultural differences in how people took it. But there's still so much to uncover. Like the film's lasting legacy and all the conversations it sparked, all that's still to come.
It's interesting, isn't it, how Love Actually really got people talking about all the different kinds of love out there. Not just the romantic kind, but the love between families, between friends. It's like you're looking through a kaleidoscope. All these different relationships, each one showing you a different side of love.
Yeah, definitely. The film does such a good job of capturing all those different dynamics, but it hasn't been all smooth sailing for the film, right? Especially in recent years. There's been some criticism about things like a lack of diversity, maybe some portrayals of women and relationships that haven't aged so well.
It's a valid point. What might have seemed charming or acceptable a couple of decades ago? Well, let's just say times have changed, haven't they? Like, think about gender roles. Huge difference between how they were seen back then and how they're seen now.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting how the film has sparked all these discussions about representation and inclusivity in the things we watch. And to be fair to Richard Curtis, he has responded to those criticisms. He said that, yeah, some parts of the film haven't aged that well, but he sees every film he makes as a chance to learn and do better.
That's really great to hear. It shows he's willing to listen and engage with those changing conversations, and to recognize that creative works can reflect the times they were made in, but also push for something better.
Exactly. So even with the criticisms, you can't deny Love Actually has made its mark on pop culture. I mean, it's become a holiday tradition for so many. And you can definitely see its influence on so many other holiday films, all exploring those heartwarming themes of love and connection.
It's true, some films, they just go beyond that initial release and become part of our cultural experience. Love Actually has become, for many, a part of the holiday season itself, almost like a familiar song that we come back to year after year. Oh, totally. I can't even count how many times I've seen those airport scenes recreated somewhere. And I know, those big romantic gestures can seem over the top. But there's just something so appealing about the idea that love can conquer all, even in the middle of holiday chaos.
Right. And I think that's part of why the film still resonates with so many. It speaks to that longing we have for connection, for belonging, for love, especially during a time of year that can be both joyful and, well, a bit melancholy at times.
Definitely. So I'm curious, after this deep dive, do you look at Love Actually any differently now, knowing all this behind-the-scenes stuff, the mixed reactions, the discussions it sparked?
I think for me, it's definitely given me a deeper understanding of the film. It's like peeling back those layers. You find all these complexities beneath the surface. It's still heartwarming, still enjoyable, but now I'm looking at it through a more critical lens, seeing both its good points and its flaws. I know what you mean. It's made me realize how a film can be both beloved and debated. How it can make you feel all warm and fuzzy, while also prompting you to think more deeply about its messages and what it's really saying.
And maybe that's part of why it's still so popular. It encourages us to keep coming back to it, to reconsider its themes as our own understanding of love and relationships evolves.
You've definitely given me a lot to think about. Beyond the surface charm and those feel-good moments, there's so much more to unpack.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe this deep dive will lead to some interesting conversations this holiday season. Maybe around the dinner table.
I hope so. Now, that would be a holiday miracle. So we've covered a lot, haven't we? From all the behind-the-scenes secrets to how people reacted to it and its complex legacy. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to ponder. We know societal views have changed so much since Love Actually came out back in 2003. So what do you think a modern-day version of the film would look like?
That's a tough one, but a really interesting question. I think if they were to make Love Actually today, it would have to reflect just how diverse our world is now. You'd need to see all sorts of people, different cultures, different backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, everything.
Totally. Yeah, the original film, it was pretty focused on one specific slice of society. And that wouldn't really work today.
Okay.
What about the storylines themselves? Do you think they'd stick with similar themes? Or would a modern Love Actually explore completely different relationship dynamics?
It would be interesting to see how they'd incorporate technology into it. I mean, online dating, social media, the fact that work life and personal life are so blurred these days. All those things are such a big part of relationships now. They weren't really a thing back in 2003.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine like a storyline about a couple who meet on a dating app.
Yeah.
Or one about a long-distance relationship that starts through video calls.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be cool to see storylines that challenge traditional gender roles? Like maybe a stay-at-home dad who's juggling everything while his partner is focused on her career. Or even a story about a polyamorous relationship.
Those are such good ideas. And you know what else I think would be really powerful? Storylines that focus on marginalized voices and experiences. Stories that break down stereotypes and show us different ways of loving and connecting. Like maybe a story about a family who rallies around their transgender child. Or a couple who are trying to bridge cultural differences as they build a life together.
That would be amazing. A film that embraces all those complexities and truly reflects how rich and diverse human connection is in the 21st century. It would really show how far we've come when it comes to representation and inclusivity.
So to all our listeners out there,
Right.
what storylines would you want to see in a modern Love Actually? How would you update it to connect with people today? Let us know.
At the end of the day, Love Actually, even with its flaws and its charms, it captures something universal. That desire for connection, for love, for belonging. And those themes, they'll always be relevant, no matter how much the world around us changes.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And hey, maybe someday we'll get that modern remake. But until then, we can still enjoy the original, relive those classic scenes, and maybe even use it to spark some interesting conversations about love, about relationships, about how our own views have changed over time. So this holiday season, when you watch Love Actually, maybe it'll be more than just a cozy tradition. Maybe it'll get you thinking and talking about all these things. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
And happy holidays, everyone.